Welcome back to Looking Forth, the channel brought to you by Fourth Horizon & Co. and our network of creatives and makers, design thinkers and unthinkers, futurists and digital transformers, all with a common purpose of helping organizations like yours find new forms of value at the intersection of business and technology. So after our first video on running a prompt library, we got some comments and some feedback and some questions on, are there any alternatives if for whatever reason I don't want to use Microsoft Power Platform and Power Apps to do that? So I listened, I heard, I went off and did some research. And what I'm going to do today is go through one alternative that I found that probably suits at least my purposes and probably all of yours. So with that, let's go gliding. Some of the comments we got are very valid. Some of them are obvious, some of them not so obvious. Clearly, PowerApps is behind a paywall. If your organization uses Microsoft 365, potentially you can have access to that, but maybe you don't. And maybe it's not your preferred platform of choice. That's okay too. So I decided to go off and see what the alternatives were. And I used some principles, and there is actually a full build out of how I built the app I ended up with. And I'll go through the rationale and some of the reasons behind that. But essentially, I needed something that is a platform-based, web-based, cloud-based solution. So unfortunately, even though I love OutSystems, that is still an app-driven model. And so I actually need to have that software on my desktop. Now, probably like some of you, I've got some older devices that are still perfectly functional, but for whatever reason, can't move to Windows 11. So I have one perfectly good Core i5 laptop. I'm now running that as an Ubuntu desktop. I also have an Asus VivoBook, perfectly new, still viable. Processor is a little bit lightweight and it doesn't have the hardware TPM. So I've reflashed that to be a Chromebook using Chrome OS Flex. So now I'm left with two devices where I can't, unfortunately, even though I love OutSystems, can't run OutSystems on those devices because there isn't a snap, there isn't a Flatpak that is just good enough for OutSystems. Also, I'm also thinking wish list. One of the things I personally don't like about PowerApps is if I'm running something like, and maybe many of you are, running something like an Android device, maybe a Samsung S9, S10 tablet, even with Dex mode, whatever else, I cannot actually run, I can't hit make.powerapps.com. I'm forced to use a Windows device, a Mac. I can probably run it on Ubuntu. Haven't tried that. But I want something flexible. And the reason why I want that is if I'm actually out doing field research and I've built an app, I would like to actually just modify that real time sometimes. So that kind of ruled out that. There are some other choices, Appian being one, Mendix being another. But if you actually look at who the SIs are for those, they tend to be Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, those kind of organizations. So it really is enterprise scale, and that's perfectly fine. But for me, I need something that can flex from me as a business owner in my own right, through SMEs all the way up, and mostly I'm using it as a proof of concept, a proof of technology, and so there are always ways to harden it later on. So I was trying to find something that can really stretch to fit all the organizations I kind of work with, and so I was looking for that. Now I would say Appsheet. I'm a big fan of Google Workspace. Done a lot of work with Google Cloud. Unfortunately, Appsheet rules itself out for this use case specifically because today there is still not a reliable copy to clipboard command available in Appsheet. So straight away, I have to eliminate that. So where did I end up? I ended up with Glide Apps. And so what we're going to do now is take you through kind of what that looks like. I'll show you some of the things I've built inside Glide Apps. I'll talk a little bit about some of the key differences with Glide Apps that I find super useful, super powerful. I'd actually just go off and create a category and a product and a model to show you what that looks like. And then just to show you how easy it is, I'll put a prompt in that I've been working on inside Gemini. I'll create that prompt. I'll then show you a different persona that shows you some of the differences, and we'll talk about what those are, and we talk about use specific columns. So with that, let's get into it. So when you first come into Glide Apps, so when you go to glideapps.com, you'll be hit with this landing page. And here you can see all the information on the product and solutions and everything else, and you would hit login. When you log in, and I've logged in using my fourthhorizon.co, I then see, I would see an app And what I now see is I've launched that app and I can see essentially the layout. So this is the building view of what Glide looks like. Very simple, very clean, very easy to use. Now, I built this app from finding out about Glide to building this app functionally took me about 4 hours. There was a little bit of to and fro. And when I share the link later on about the turn by turn of how I actually built that, I'll show you some of the choices I made and some of the decisions I've made from a design principle when using Glide apps. But essentially, you have data, you have layout, you've got workflows, and then you've got some settings. So let's just go into data. And I'll show you one thing very quickly. So I've got myself here as an admin, so admin boo, and I've got some other users in here, me again with a different account using a gmail.com, and you can see some other users in here, a mixture of their own domains, a mixture of Gmail, and a mixture of Outlook. So because I'm an admin, it actually allows me when I come back into layout to see things like products, models, and prompt categories. What I'm actually going to do though is just have a quick look through those. So you see it's very similar to the one I showed earlier, prompt categories, prompt products, prompt models, and this other row called status choices. And that allows me to do a lookup back into some of these other tables just to show you how we would use a pipeline. And then of course the prompt library. So one of the things I'll highlight here very quickly is this on the My Favorite column. You see this. This determines that it's a user-specific field. And that really is one of the secret superpowers of Glide. And I will show you functionally how that looks. So let's go back into the layout. And as I said, I'm going to create a prompt category first. Super easy, very intuitive. Hit the add button. Give it a product name. Let's call it Futures and Foresight. For something I'm working on as another part of my role, and we'll make that active. And that's that example. We had that status table, and here I can see all of those available, testing inactive or active. I'll make it active, save, submit, done. We've now got a category. Just to show you what that looks like, when I come back into prompts, I now have Futures and Foresight here straight away, seamlessly, instantly. Where we are right now, I'm going to add in a few more models. So I'm going to add in GPT-5 off the announcement. And I'm also going to add in, because I'm not just doing text, I'm doing multimodal, I'm going to add in VO3 from Google, add that in. And as we talked about on the other video, where we consume that is through a product. So I've got Microsoft Copilot in here. That actually already is a combination of GPT-5 and Microsoft Copilot. I'm going to add another one in. I've been doing a lot of Snowflake work recently. So I'm going to add in Snowflake, Cortex, and here I can build an agent. I can interact in an LLM type style. And right now, today, already at the point of this recording, in the same way I have available access to GPT-5 inside Snowflake Cortex. So I'll add that one in. In terms of VO, I normally prompt that through Gemini, and I'll say, go and render me a realistic video using VO3, and I usually prompt that in there. So that's stepping out of the demo briefly. Whilst I'm talking about this prompt and how I generally construct the prompts I use, it seems like a good opportunity for a shout out to Lee Boonstra from Google and his 68-page prompt engineering guide he dropped about 5 months ago, full of great guidance and a solid and highly recommended read. For a guided walkthrough, I would also recommend Matthew Berman's session on his YouTube channel, and here's a link to that session. A highly insightful channel and one of a handful I will glance at on a very regular basis. So after that pause, let's get back to where we left off with crafting that AI for customer support prompt. Please provide 5 compelling and sustainable use cases. And then I've asked for a table and I've asked for some very specific columns. Subdomain of customer support, typical persona, a one-line name, a summary overview of the capability, key benefits, and typical challenges. And then, because this is never only about technology, this is always about a holistic approach to everything we do. So technology, people, and process. How do we think from a pro-side change management perspective? What element of the ADKAR method should we pull in to make sure that we can then allow those personas, customer success manager, whoever that's going to be, to make sure that we're bringing them on the journey of then actually using generative AI. So notes, I won't add anything just yet, created by me, just add in my username. I will change this later on to pick it up just based on who is the active user. Category, we'll use domain expertise. Product, we'll be doing this in Gemini, pure Gemini as a conversational interface, and we will use Gemini 2.5 Pro and submit. Okay, and we're good. So we just added one in. So we added that into the newly created category called domain expertise. So let's have a look at that. Come in to AI and customer support, one we just created. And then here we literally go copy, and this is the familiar functionality, which is why we rolled out Appsheet, copy to clipboard. So let's do that and drop into Gemini, paste, run, and off we go. And it will go off, and we can actually look at the reasoning. Because we're running Pro, it's in reasoning mode, so we can actually start to have a look at framing support tiers, and it'll actually start to build out its rationale as to what it's going to build out for me. So let's just collapse that back down, and here we have our use cases. So first line, second line support agent, and I'll come all the way down because of the width of this screen, come down, and down in here at the end of this, I'll be able to scroll across, and I can see all of those things. So here we have awareness from ADKAR, and here we've got knowledge, ability. So we've gone through, ADKAR. We've gone through all elements of ADKAR, so we can actually see then kind of how we would then start to allow this particular use case to be rolled out into that persona. So all good, very familiar. Let's come back in here, and I want to show you a couple of things. So I talked about the secret sauce of Glide, which is user-specific columns. So let's just go back into data. So we've got my favorite here, and you can see it's user-specific. So now when I come into the layout and I click my favorite, if we now come back into that data field, we will see that AI and customer support is now ticked as my favorite. If I was to come in as a different user, and I'll show you that in a second, this wouldn't be one of my favorites because this is a user-specific column. We also use that. Notes is also a user-specific. So I'm going to put here, so starting out on domain expertise, for customer support. Customer support. Currently trying in Gemini. And over time, I would then maybe say I'm going to try that in something like Perplexity. So that now is specific to me. So let's just go back out to prompts, and we'll see a little bit again about how we do this. So you can see here I've filtered it on domain expertise. What I'm doing in this case is I'm using the ability of Mint Table. All of these are user-specific columns. So I have said I want my choice category for my specific filtering to be domain expertise. And then what that does is it filters down to those 5. What I'm going to do now is come back off, and I'm going to say show only my favorite prompts. So now I only see my favorite prompts. So how are we doing that? Because we're leveraging this ability to have a user-specific column of my favorite, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in here. And then what I'll see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in here. So this is one of the really secret superpowers of Glide, and I'm using it significantly to do that. The other thing I'm doing is I'm an admin, so I have the ability to create products, models, and prompt categories. What I'm going to do now is just come back into customer support and show you that I've got this note here called starting out on domain expertise, written as me, and it's my favorite. I'm going to change persona. I'm going to come in as a second user, which is using a Gmail account for myself. And so I'm in here as David Student. You can see down the bottom. And now when I come into my favorites, you can see that I do not have that customer support in here. So I'm going to come back to all. I'm going to come to come to domain expertise, and I'm going to come into that AI and customer support. And you can see the prompt. It's not a favorite, and there are no notes, because my favorite and notes here, usage notes, these are my personal usage notes. So now I have the ability in here to create a very simple way of sharing these prompts. People using the user-specific columns can then highly tailor that their usage notes. They can put in kind of what the models, combinations of models and products they're using. They can favorite it. And we get the benefit of them being able to have a look at the whole of the prompt library, the whole of the catalog, and then very quickly drill down onto my specific favorites. So again, if I come off of here and I come to mine favorites, as this persona, I only have 3. Again, when I come back to my main body of knowledge, I've got 6 as a different persona. So that really is what we're doing. And this really then becomes a highly viable alternative for any of you wanting to build out a prompt library. On our website, I will be sharing a turn-by-turn build out of how I've built this app from 0 to what you see here. And you will find that in a link posted later on. It'll have all the commentary around that and some short videos to give you, actually show you, not only talk about it, but actually show you in a real hands-on experience of how I've gone and built this app, so you can then go and do that yourself. I do get it. I've been using PowerApps for 10 years, even before it was PowerApps under its project name. And I will often still, now today, get caught in a conflict between the control I'm trying to use on the canvas and the data field in the background. And I'll end up having to look at documentation, maybe follow a video from Shane or someone like that, and really then get it stuck into PowerFX and all this stuff to try and make that control work. Glide suppresses all of that. The metadata model it runs is super powerful. If you have a particular column format in the table, in the data, there are just some controls that you just won't be able to put on the canvas. It's super helpful. It really makes, that's one of the reasons why I was able to get from finding out about Glide to building a functional app in 4 hours. And again, the tutorial I'll post later on, it'll go through some of those learnings and some of those ins and outs of what I've learned from doing that. But basically, if you go off and start to investigate Glide, and I suggest you do, come up with an idea of what you want the app to look like first, and then go into the data and then to start to work it out, because otherwise you will end up kind of doing little repeats of yourself. But again, in the tutorial, have a look. So I do suggest you go off and have a look, dig into it. It's super useful. There is a paid version, a maker version, there's an enterprise version. What I'm using here for the purpose of this is a free tier that allows me to have one fully functional app. And that's enough for me to get started for what I want to do. I want to be able to go to a workshop with a customer, leave behind for 10, 14 days, some prompts so they can get used to it. And then I go back, find the right tool for them, harden it, maybe Glide, maybe something else, and actually then feed a prompt library into their flow of work. Equally, if I'm going and teaching an executive education inside a business school, I have many different email domains I'm dealing with, right? It's not a single company. So I need something that allows me to do not a single sign-on, just as you saw in that table, a list of email addresses from all sorts of domains, whether it's free like Gmail or Outlook, something else, something like my domain or my colleague Craig, who's got his own domain. And so really I need something flexible that allows me, again, to set up a prompt library, run it inside an executive education environment, leave it with them for 7 days, and then turn it off, and they can get the benefit of those prompts, copy them, whatever they want to do. So Glide, have a look and become a glider. If you found this interesting or useful, please like and consider subscribing. We welcome any questions, feedbacks, and comments. It helps us help you. Don't forget to check the show notes for further information, and any links referred to in this show. Do feel free to connect with me or us, QR codes and URLs to LinkedIn right after this. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. Original audio created using Refusion AI, intro video using Google VO, post-production editing in DaVinci Resolve, all by me, David Mott.